Hey y'all, I've been wanting to share our GED journey with you for a good little bit now. I'm sure there are plenty of moms out there that can use this information and also benefit from our story. So I have a 16-year-old son. He took his GED shortly after he turned 16. He took it a few months after he turned 16. I'm located in Tallahassee, Florida, so we are in Florida. I know some states have different practices and whatnot, but in the state of Florida, you can take your GED at 16. So he did shortly after his 16th birthday. He is still 16 and he is already enrolled in college and is doing, he's at a technical college, so he is doing auto mechanics, and he is phenomenally better than how he has been. He has ADHD and a couple other learning disabilities, so being in a classroom doing academics was not his thing, and he started making it very clear to me at age 13, which is what led us down this path. So as we went on this journey, we not really until recently realized how unique it was. So my son is currently the youngest full-time enrolled as an adult, yet he's only 16 years old at his local technical college. He is also the first 16-year-old to pass his first classes in trade school, because our local trade school does have a number of dual enrolled high school students, but they just kind of come in there and fart around and they're not serious about it, so they don't pass the classes. So my son has been the youngest enrolled at our local technical college and the youngest to pass any of those classes so far. So at the time, we didn't realize how unique our story was. I was just really trying to be an advocate for my son is all I was really trying to do. So let me run you through our story. So if you are a mom and you are dealing with this and you have a kid with ADHD, a kid with learning disabilities, that is what I am able to speak on. Come on, Moki. That's what I'm able to speak on. I'm not familiar with other neurodivergencies, as far as autism and, anxiety disorders, depression, and things like that. That's not something that we dealt with in our house. So just so you know where I'm coming from. And also, I will also give the disclaimer that my son is very go with the flow. Very go with the flow. And I think that those things helped us in the direction that we went. So, all right, let me get to it. At age 13, my son started asking me to drop out of school. He wanted to drop out. He did not want to go anymore. He just didn't want to do it. It just caused him a ton of anxiety, didn't want to do academic work. He told me in several different ways, I just can't do it. It's not that I'm going and I don't want to do it. I literally cannot do it. And I asked him, I said, do you want to get an evaluation? Do you feel like something else other than just your ADHD is going on? And he was like, yes. So we did get an evaluation and we did find out, yes, there are multiple other learning disabilities that he was struggling with. So we got those answers, and I started researching because what I have been told my whole life is that they have to be 18 to take a GED. In the state of Florida, they can be 16. So I found our local program, and so I'm going to give you the whole thing. It's a roller coaster ride. It's not for the weak. I was scared out of my mind multiple times throughout this journey. So your first step is finding the GED program, find your local GED program, start the enrollment process, find out when their next classes that they're accepting. So if you have a kiddo that you are dragging through school, this has been heaven sent. This has been the best decision that I could have made as a parent and as my son made for himself. And so I had to share this because I know there's so many neurospicy kids out there, and there's a lot of kids that just don't want to be in school anymore and they just want to get on with it. And this is a very good path for that. And it has done exactly just that for us, far above and beyond any way that I could have fathomed at the time. So wonderful experience. Wonderful. I'm so happy where we're at now. Things are calm. My stress level is down. We can finally have a good dynamic in our house. I'm not constantly hounding him about homework every 5 minutes and did your teacher do this and did you turn this in, and you're behind on this and you're missing this many assignments. Like, it's no longer any more of that. It is wonderful. He's doing automotive mechanics at his local trade school now, and he loves it. And that is one thing. So if your kiddo is telling you, I like to learn hands-on, I'm a hands-on person, I can't learn from watching a video, I can't learn from somebody giving me oral directions, I just need to see it done with hands in front of me and I do it while they do it and I learn, this is great. This is best decision we could have made ever. And so because my requirement as a parent and as a mother was, you must graduate high school or have a GED, and you must have a skill set to offer people when you go out into this world. Like, we're not going to graduate and just go work at Walmart or go work at Dollar Tree. We're not going to do that. Like, you need to have a skill set, because as an adult, I need you to be able to keep a roof over your head. And if you have a family, be able to support them. And, of course, your trade that you choose, whatever that is, you don't have to do that. So my son's plan is, once he's doing a 2-year mechanics degree, and then he plans to go into the U.S. Coast Guard. That's what he really wants to do. He wants to be out on the water, on a boat. He loves being outdoors. That's his thing. So I said, the mechanics degree is just something you can fall back on. If you ever find yourself without a job, you have a skill set that you can offer people, and you can go out there and make money and not, completely lose everything that you've acquired in your life. So those were my 2 prerequisites before you leave this house. And so that's what we're still doing, even though we took a very different path that we did not know that we were going to take. So anywho, so you find your local GED school, find out when the next class is starting, start the enrollment process. Here's the scary part. When you go to their high school to withdraw them, they list them as dropouts because they're not going to another school and they're not going to homeschool. So they list them as a dropout. You can request that they list them as a homeschool student, and that's what I did. And that bought us a few weeks. So my son turned 16 in January. I withdrew him over Christmas break. And so we had the withdrawal form from his high school, which stated he was going into a homeschool program, because him being listed as a dropout just scared the pants off of me. And so I was like, yeah, just list him as homeschool, because we've done that before. So throughout the years of dealing with ADHD, we have done public school, private school, charter school, homeschool, online school. We've tried it all. And it's the same. It just doesn't matter how you swing it. It's the same. It's the same battles. It's just whether, I will say homeschooling and online school was better, because at least I wasn't trying to reach out to 6 or 7 different teachers every day to find out what he missed. I at least knew what he was missing, and it was easy to locate and find and get him back on track, versus waiting on a teacher to email you back at 11 o'clock at night, to find out what's going on in the classroom. So anywho, so you will withdraw them from school. It is a scary process. So they also let you know when you withdraw them and go to put them in a GED program, they let you know if your child does not complete the GED and they decide they want to come back to school, they can't. They're not allowed to. So for instance, my son was in the 10th grade at the time. And when I withdrew him over Christmas break, if he went into the GED program for the second semester of 10th grade, and if he didn't complete his GED and decided, this isn't for me, I want to go back to school. Well, you can't just come in and jump into the 11th grade and you didn't do half of your 10th grade work. They don't let you do that. So you're just out. So I had to, really trust the process, because my son was leading me. I was just advocating. He was letting me know, this is what I have to do. Like, I'm not going to make another 2 years of school. And I said, okay. So I trusted the process. Thank God. So when they go into the GED, they test them right away. So, once you make it over that hump of like withdrawing them from high school, you've got them in the GED class, they're registered in there. You just got to make sure that your kiddo is motivated enough to make it through. And I will say the GED it's easy. It's easy. It's not rocket science. The GED, from my understanding, does not go over a 10th grade level. And the majority of it is 8th grade level, that's kind of like the bulk majority of it. It goes up to that. there's small bits that will go up to 10th grade level. So basically at this point, which is also another great thing to do, take them straight out of school right into the GED program. Don't let them get out of the habit of doing schoolwork, because I think that that was another benefit that I had for my son. Like, he was already familiar in a classroom setting, doing schoolwork every day, you know, doing the expectations. So when he went into the GED program, doing work and studying and doing the test was just like regular school, but just a whole lot easier and not with all the extracurriculars. And so it was great. So you'll get them into that, into the GED program. Again, so the practice test run about $8 each. There's 4 core subjects: your math, science, history, and English. When you take the test, and you take each subject separately, so you're not doing like an entire GED test all in one day. You're testing a little bit here and there. And when they do take the main subjects, those are, I want to say, $42 each. And a lot of cities and schools have programs that will pay for that as well. And that's what we did. So I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, and we had the Tempo program, and the Tempo program covered the cost of a lot of that. There's also a basic tuition to come in, which was like $30-something, and, you know, we paid that. So again, not a lot of money, but, you know, there's a chunk of change going into it. You get them in there, and I will say, instantaneously, I saw a huge change in my child. GED classes have some of the best teachers. They know that they're dealing with some of the roughest kids in the school system. So again, that's another thing that I had concerns about. Like, my kids in a GED class with kids that have been permanently expelled from school, from bringing weapons to school, fighting at school, you know, like, so I was worried. But honestly, my son said it really wasn't like that. The bulk majority of people in his GED class were immigrants, people learning English as a second language and getting their high school diploma here in America so that they could go to work. So it really wasn't like that. There was some bad kids that, you know, he said you could tell they didn't really want to be there either. But it wasn't a huge deal. And thankfully he was not influenced by them, because that was another concern that I had. I was literally on the edge of my seat this entire process. And I was just keeping quiet. I was just trying to just make it through. And I didn't have a whole lot of support, because of course family around us were just like, you know, you're letting your 16-year-old just take a GED, like people look down upon it. So let me give you some background on that too, that I also learned. So with the GED, your child will get the same exact diploma that they will get from a high school. The only difference is it says state of Florida instead of showing their high school that they graduated from. So it is no different. It is, and also the other thing that really benefited my son, as he was struggling and his grades were really bad, mostly Fs, when he took the GED, so the passing score on the GED test has to be like a C or above. And so based on how high they score, the GED replaces their old high school transcripts with the new scores in each subject. So my son went from having mostly Fs, you know, to having A's, B's, and C's. So the GED, so each subject, so he's really good in science, for instance. Science and history are his 2 great subjects. He scored higher in those. So he has A's and B's on his transcript for history and science. And then his English and math, he has C's in now instead of F's. So it will also save them on the transcript front. So if they ever decide to go to college down the road, you know, they can, and they have the transcripts to do that. So that was really cool. And you can go to college with a GED. As I said earlier, my son's in technical college right now, and he's doing great. So, yes, good things to know there. Once he passed the GED, a lot of these organizations have graduations for them. So he got a full graduation, cap and gown. Everybody from the whole year that took their GED throughout the year all got to come, a whole ceremony, guest speakers. I mean, we packed up in this, I think it was a church or some kind of conference center that we were in. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. And there was people from all sorts of walks of life. Like, I sat next to a lady, her daughter, so the lady that I sat next to, her and her husband were in a car wreck, and their daughter dropped out of school to take care of them because they were, recovering from a very severe car wreck. And she took her GED. So there's people that have just, life has been lifing, and it life with them, and they're there. So it's not all bad kids. That was kind of like the mindset that I had, the misbehaving, the ones that have been expelled, brought weapons to school, things like that. And they're sprinkled in there, but that's not the bulk majority. There was some really beautiful stories, people that were in their 30s and 40s that, dropped out decades ago, but they decided to finally go back and get their GED. So it was a very wholesome, beautiful. And the other thing that really surprised me, now I've been to a lot of high school graduations. This one, I would say 96 to 97% of the graduating class, every last one of them was going to college. I have never seen that. I have sat through high school graduations many times throughout my life, and there might be, I would say, 20% of those students have plans to go to college. But in the GED graduation, like, they are so well supported, and they have teachers in there that engage these students on a level that these kids just, nobody has given them the time. They've allowed them to fall through the cracks academically, behaviorally, and I tell you, they have some of the best teachers in your local GED program. I was just absolutely floored. My son really started to enjoy school. He enjoyed learning. He was like, my teacher is the greatest. Like, he will show me over and over and over. He doesn't get mad if I don't get it. Like, they have patience like I have never seen in my life. And it was beautiful. Just to see my son just enjoy school was just, that had never happened, not since he was little. So I was very excited about that. So yeah, they go all out for these kids. They provided cap and gowns. They fed everybody so like Tempo was the program here that took care of everything. They provided them with free cap and gowns. They fed everybody. They had Jimmy John's caters, so everybody had subs and chips and sodas and drinks and stuff. They had a 360 photo booth for all the kids to, take their pictures with their friends, and they did senior pictures for them. They got their diploma in a frame. They gave them $100 gift card. They gave them like a goodie bag, which had the gift card in it. I'm talking about, like, he had a regular high school graduation. It was phenomenal. So no regrets. Was it scary? Absolutely. But as I started to learn and get educated about, the GED and the whole process, it was very easy. Once they're all done and the Department of Education approves their GED and their graduation and everything, you pay $10 to get a copy of their diploma. And yeah, then you can put it up in their room or whatnot, which is where my son's is, up there upstairs. And don't mind my half-finished accent wall back there. But so that was our experience. And then, of course, like, all the kids were going to college. So, and of course, my rule of thumb, was, hey, you have to have a skill set. So we also took time going over all the trades. I would get on YouTube, and we would just, on the weekends, we'd spend like an hour, and I wrote down all the trades that were available at our local school here, and we would put on. So in the search bar of YouTube, I would just search a day in the life of, an HVAC professional, a day in the life of an aeronautics mechanic, and we would just go through them. And then because my son wants to go into the Coast Guard, he also, Googled what is the best trade to have going into the Coast Guard. And that was also mechanics. So he was already leaning towards mechanics. And then that just kind of solidified it. He's like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I was like, okay. So we went over to the technical college and started the application process. Once he had his GED, got him straight in. And yes, now he is literally the youngest on record enrolled in our local technical college. They have never had a 16-year-old enrolled full-time as an adult. So it's really funny. Every time we go, I go in there to the financial aid office with them, and they're like, they look at him and they're like, would you like to invite your mother into this meeting? And I'm like, ma'am, he's a minor. I'll be in this meeting. And they're like, oh, he's a minor? I'm like, yeah, he's only 16. They're like, oh, okay. So very different territory that we're dealing with. So he is the youngest there at Lively, and he is the youngest to pass his first classes in his mechanic school. So again, we didn't realize how unique this was. And we got a lot of compliments along the way. People just like, I can't believe, he's, this was a kid who fell through the cracks that nobody even bothered to really help academically. And it went from that to, wow, he's so motivated. Oh, look, he's so young and he's doing this and he got this done and he's in this and he's pursuing that. And so it has changed my son's life completely. His confidence is so much higher. He is happier. He brings home projects now, which is something he's never done. He's never brought home stuff from school ever to work on it. And now he does. He has new friends that he really enjoys. And those were things that I always noticed he struggled with. I would ask about friends at school and he was just like, no, I don't really like anybody at school. And, he stuck to his online buddies and, so it's good to see this. So everything has been great. Let me see if there's anything that I'm missing. Feel free to drop questions below. I'm happy to help. Again, as a mother I have been dragging my son through school since about the 3rd grade is when it really started to get hard academically. I just really felt like I needed to put this out to moms. Like, you do have another option other than, forcing your kid to go all 4 years. Now, I will say it's not for everybody. My son is not interested in homecoming. He's not interested in prom. He wasn't in any clubs. He did not participate in sports. So to offer the GED was a really good fit for him. Now, if you have, a kid that's really into sports and has a really good social network, it may not be the best fit. But if you kind of have a kid who's a homebody, and does the video game thing and they're not really into, a lot of that, it's a great fit. And another thing I will say is if you have a child who kind of bucks the system, it might not be a good fit because, again, you are dependent upon, once you put them in that GED class, it's the GED or nothing else. They cannot return back into the school system. So again, my son is very go with the flow. He was asking for all this. We were just advocating along the way, just, reaching out to the right people, making things happen for him. So yeah, if you have a child that maybe has, because I will say my son has never had a behavioral issue ever. He's never been suspended or detention, nothing. School just wasn't his thing. So if academics is just not their thing and they don't have a huge social network and, they're not super involved in school, this is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So you do have other options. You don't have to just keep pushing through school and pushing academics. If, your kids are just clear, like, hey, academics is not my thing, that's okay. That's what the GED is there for. And so it was an absolute pleasure. The teachers were absolutely amazing. Tempo was phenomenal in their support, community support to get these kids through and reach their goals. Again, beautiful ceremony, watching so many people, go to college and have plans after school. A lot of kids went into nursing. It was like, I think I teared up twice during that ceremony because I had just never seen anything like it, to watch so many kids overcome so many obstacles. Everybody had a different story in there. Um, let's see. And then also it, fixed transcripts. So if, my son ever decides to go to, an academic 4-year university at some point, he'll have the grades to be able to do that now, which is great. It really is a fresh start for those kids that really need it, and kids that just don't want to be bothered with school. And some of them are just like that. And I will say the GED, so to give you some context, my son at the time was in the 10th grade, and he was having a hard time with doing all of the work. Not necessarily comprehension, but the amount of all the different work coming from different directions, different websites, and, just remembering all the different teachers and what needs to go where. And I will say doing the GED, he said, was phenomenally easier. He was like, oh, I can do this. I no problem. I can do this. So I will say on a grand scale, the GED was a lot easier than versus a high school setting with multiple teachers, multiple classes, and all sorts of revolving work. With the GED, they have one book they work out of. And a lot of these kids, I also noticed, and my son is like this too, they don't favor the computer. Even though my son loves video games and he's online with his friends, they favor, having an actual sheet of paper in front of you and filling in the answers. And that's what they did in the GED classroom. So I think that there's also, just a tendency for those kids to like that kind of stuff. And I know for a lot of ADHDers, they say, like, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. And I think what's happening with a lot of our kids right now is, they're doing all this work on the computer, and, it's like, if they can't just easily locate it on the computer, they're like, forget it. Like, I don't want to do this, and I think that that's happening for a huge portion of our kids. I think ADHD is far more prevalent than they let on that it is, or that the diagnosis show. But I'm noticing that a lot of kids are struggling. Like, they're just like, I have to remember, 20 different passwords, 20 different usernames, different websites, and I got to pull my work up from that. And it's like, and a lot of them are just, it's just too much. They'd rather be given, the assignment on paper, and complete it and turn it in and, have the tangibleness of that. And my son is very much like that. And I noticed that they ran the GED classes like that too. So that's another benefit. I'm trying to think anything else before I shut this down. Not that I can really think of. Overall, phenomenal move, great. Both me and my son have a far better relationship now. I'm no longer hounding him about homework every day, schoolwork, school obligations. And he was absolutely telling the truth. He does learn with his hands. He's doing great in school, in mechanic school now. Yeah, absolutely no complaints whatsoever. So if you've got a kiddo and you're dragging them through school and they're neurospicy in any kind of way, and if they're willing to do the GED work, which again, like I said, is not a lot. They're very direct when you go into the classroom. They test them right away. Like literally their first week that they're in there, they do a placement test, and that placement test will let them know, hey, you're ready to take the GED. Like, you're going to be taking it within the next couple weeks, or, you're almost ready for the GED, but you need a little practice. Here's the subjects and areas and, modules and stuff that you need to work on to get sufficient in these areas. Or you're not ready to take the GED and you need quite a bit of practice, and this is where we're going to start. So my son tested into the middle area. And so he took his GED a couple months after he turned 16. So they know right away where they're at and the amount of work that they're going to have to do to get where they need to be. But I will say, if you're pulling your kids straight out of regular public private school or whatever, and you put them directly into GED, they haven't taken any time off, they haven't gotten rusty at all, it should be a pretty smooth process. Like, he went right in, did what he needed to do, and was done in a matter of a couple months. So some people have the expectation that a GED takes months, years. It doesn't. Some kids that are homeschooled, they take a GED, they study for like a week and take it, and they're done. So it just all depends. But I think these kids being in a school setting, and you put them into a GED class, they test pretty fast and it's pretty easy. And again, my son has ADHD and 3 other learning disabilities on top of that. So, and he did very well. And again, the GED only goes as high as the 10th grade level. So, and again, they have to be 16. So at 16, they should be in a 10th grade classroom. So when you pull them out and put them in, they're testing right on grade level. It's fine. It's doable. It's totally doable. So again, best thing that we could have done. The dynamic in the household is peaceful. Everything is wonderful. It is so much better. Yeah. So much better. So I wanted to share that with you other mamas who may be struggling. If you still have years to go, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And for those of you that are there are options. And this has been a phenomenal option for us. And feel free to drop questions below. I'm happy to answer them. I am not a YouTuber, influencer. I don't make videos. I don't do any of that. I just really wanted to share this, and I felt like it was valuable information because, again, we were told so many times throughout the GED process and even the college administration process, like they have never seen anybody this young do this. But when my child started talking about dropping out at 13, I moved. I made moves, and I made sure that I would find a way for him to still finish school and meet my criteria that I feel as a parent, having, again, a high school diploma or GED, and then also having a skill set to offer people when you get out in this world, that was a must. And so I had to make sure that I maintained that, even though, he needed other accommodations along the way. So that is that. Thank you so much for listening. Best of luck on your journey, and I am happy to help along the way. All right. Take care.